Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today is, well, it's pretty simple. We are giving you the ultimate shortcut to mastering modern longevity.
And we really mean that. We're not talking about the vague, generalized advice you always hear.
Right. No, eat less and move more. We are dissecting a massive stack of cutting-edge research. We're pulling out the precise clinical data, the unexpected hacks, and some really sophisticated mindset tools.
These are strategies used by everyone from, world champion sprinters to neurosurgeons and behavioral investigators.
Exactly. The source materials you sent over was incredibly dense. It's all focused on these high-impact, actionable strategies.
And many of them, they just fundamentally challenge conventional health wisdom. I mean, we're moving way beyond basic biohacks here.
We really are. We're drilling down into the specific mechanisms. We'll get into how you can actually manipulate your metabolism during a fast for maximum visceral fat loss.
We'll even cover how to mechanically soften your blood vessels. And this is without medication. And then there's the stuff on using subtle language and social cues to instantly boost your perceived confidence.
Okay, so let's unpack this for everyone. We've broken this deep dive into 3 major areas just so you can absorb all this information without, feeling totally overwhelmed.
Good idea. There's a lot to cover.
First, we'll spend a good chunk of time on the new rules of nutrition and metabolism. This includes a really crucial, stunning reversal on the role of protein during fasting.
Oh, that one is huge. And we'll also get into how to eliminate a hidden source of pain that's found in a lot of so-called health foods.
Then second, we dive into the physical engine. So we're talking movement, hormone hacks, and some really clever blood pressure optimization.
And finally, we'll finish up with the mental mastery toolkit. This is all about cognitive repair, sleep science, relationship dynamics, and how to project charisma.
Our goal here isn't just to, throw a bunch of information at you. It's to connect the dots.
Exactly. We want to give you the context of why these facts matter, helping you integrate these strategies to add years of high-quality functional life.
Let's do it. All right, let's start right where most of the cutting-edge health debates are happening, at that intersection of protein and fasting.
It's a big one. For years, the gold standard for achieving cellular cleanup, what we call autophagy, has been this really rigid instruction.
Yeah, that you have to drastically restrict your protein intake, especially if you're doing any kind of calorie restriction or a fasting mimicking diet.
Right. And the reasoning seems sound, Protein can spike IGF-1, which is a growth hormone, and that growth signal supposedly cancels out all the longevity benefits of the fast.
So that's the conventional myth we need to tackle first.
And what's so fascinating here is how science is now introducing this nuance that it fundamentally changes how you should apply fasting. We're looking at the findings from a sports nutrition specialist, Vanessa Spina, and a researcher, Dr. Lucy Burns.
And their work essentially redefines that sweet spot for a beneficial fast, one that optimizes not just cellular repair, but your body composition too.
This is where it gets really interesting, and you really need to tune in for the clinical setup here.
Okay.
Dr. Burns conducted this randomized control trial in 2025. She had participants on a 7-day, 850-calorie fasting-mimicking diet.
Super restrictive.
Very restrictive. And she deliberately split them into 2 groups to, really test this protein hypothesis.
Okay, so what did the groups look like?
Group 1 was on the standard low-protein plan. We're talking 10% of their calories. It's the rigid standard fare for an FMD.
The one we all know.
Exactly. But group 2, they were on a surprisingly high protein plan. They got 30% of their 850 calories from protein.
30%. That flies in the face of everything we've been told about fasting.
It completely does. And the primary goal for longevity advocates, it's always engaging that fasting switch, getting autophagy going.
So what was the key result? Did the high protein group just ruin the fast?
Not at all. And this is what completely undercuts that rigid rule. Both groups successfully activated the essential markers for autophagy.
Both of them.
Both of them. Specifically, the expression of the LC3A gene, that's a biological indicator that your cells are breaking down old, damaged parts. It was triggered in both groups.
Wow.
And crucially, both groups also saw that necessary drop in IGF-1, the main grow and build hormone. So the longevity signal was successfully engaged even with 3 times the protein.
Hold on, let me just process that. We're saying you can successfully signal repair and longevity while eating 3 times the protein we thought was acceptable during a fast.
That's what the data suggests.
That reframes the entire restriction mindset. But Was there a distinction in body composition? There had to be some difference.
Absolutely. And this is the real nugget of knowledge here, especially for long-term health and, aesthetics. The high protein group, they specifically lost significantly more visceral fat.
And remind everyone why that's so important.
Visceral fat is that deep, metabolically dangerous fat that wraps around your internal organs. It's highly inflammatory, a major risk factor for chronic disease. So losing more of that is a huge win.
And that wasn't the only difference, was it?
No, the high-protein group also saw unique improvements in their heart rate variability, or HRV.
A key marker for nervous system resilience.
Exactly. And they also had better gut diversity. The low-protein group didn't get those extra benefits.
So if you're trying to optimize caloric restriction for the maximum benefit, you want the cellular cleanup, but you also want to optimize fat loss while protecting your muscle. It sounds like the high-protein approach is actually superior.
It seems to be. It achieves the metabolic cleanup goal while offering these deeper body composition and resilience benefits.
This leads directly to an actionable application, right? From Vanessa Spina.
Precisely. Based on this, she shifted her own approach. She moved away from traditional, rigid, intermittent fasting to incorporating what she calls protein-sparing modified fasting days, maybe once a week.
And the behavioral part of that is so important too. I remember she noted that this strategy helped her maintain muscle, but also it cut down on the social stress.
Yes, the mental rigidity that comes with those really strict eating windows, it just makes the whole practice more sustainable in the real world.
Exactly. And speaking of maintaining muscle, if we connect this to extended fasting, we have to talk about the big drawback Dave Asprey ran into: muscle loss.
Oh, absolutely. He talks about how in his early days of trying to lose 100 pounds, he did lose the weight, but he burned a ton of muscle in the process.
Which just crashed his metabolism.
Completely. It led to that classic yo-yo cycle.
So what's the fix? If you're planning a longer fast, how do you tell your body, hey, I'm fasting, but don't you dare touch the muscle?
His technique is brilliant because it's all about metabolic signaling, and it starts 12 to 24 hours before the fast even begins.
So it's about preparation.
It's all preparation. To signal muscle maintenance and enter the fast already in a fat-burning state, you should eat protein and healthy fats the night before. This makes sure your stored glycogen levels, your quick carb energy, are already low.
And there was a workout component too.
A crucial one. You should do a short, effective resistance workout 12 to 24 hours before you start restricting calories.
Why then?
That workout sends this powerful last-minute signal to your body that the muscle is vital, that it's in use, and it needs to be protected when that scarcity signal from the fast finally hits.
That really changes the perspective. It turns fasting from just, a brutal deprivation strategy into a really precise, intelligent metabolic tool.
It's all about precision. And speaking of precision, we need to pivot a bit from optimizing what you do eat to really questioning what you think is healthy.
Yes. Because there's a hidden source of systemic pain lurking in a lot of so-called superfoods.
We're talking about oxalates.
This is such a critical area. The general public is constantly being told to eat massive amounts of these exact foods. Dave Asprey really brought this to the forefront.
He did. He advises a significant reduction in high oxalate foods. And the list includes staples of modern clean eating. We're talking raw spinach, most almonds, raspberries, dark chocolate, beets.
The kind of stuff people put in their healthy smoothies every single day.
Every day. And Asprey's personal story is a perfect example of the danger here. He developed severe joint pain, systemic inflammation, even brain fog back when he was a devout raw vegan.
He was drinking massive spinach smoothies, right?
Huge ones. And he noticed that old dormant injury sites, like a spot from a previous foot surgery, would start hurting again every time he ate these high oxalate foods.
He literally said he was poisoning himself with crystals.
That's his term for it.
Crystals. Okay, this is where understanding the mechanism is so important for the listener. What are oxalates actually doing inside the body?
Well, they combine with calcium in your body, and they form calcium oxalate, which then crystallizes.
And these aren't smooth crystals.
No. Asprey describes them as forming razor-sharp calcium crystals. They're highly inflammatory, and they are not easily excreted, so they can lodge in your soft tissues, your eyes, your joints, and your kidneys.
He mentions kidney stones, too.
He notes that a staggering 70% of all kidney stones are calcium oxalate stones. They literally act like microscopic shards of glass or sandpaper on your organs and tissues.
That really puts the pain in context. So if you're trying to optimize your micronutrient intake and get healthy greens, but you want to avoid this, what's a practical low oxalate swap you can make today?
A super simple, actionable strategy is to replace that high oxalate spinach with low oxalate alternatives. Arugula is a great one. It's nutritionally dense, but safe from this perspective.
Is there anything else you can do?
Yeah, you can actively mitigate the absorption of the oxalates you do eat by taking a simple binder, like calcium citrate, with your meals.
How does that work?
The goal is for the calcium citrate to bind to the oxalate in your gut before those sharp crystals can get absorbed into your bloodstream. You're basically preventing the crystal formation before the ingredients even enter your system.
That is fantastic, precise advice. Okay, switching gears now to the absolute foundation of health, the gut microbiome and our essential nutrients. Dr. Will Bolthowich's advice is all about fueling our internal engine.
Right, specifically by slowly increasing fiber to produce short-chain fatty acids like butyrate.
And butyrate is just,
Yeah.
it's non-negotiable for longevity.
Absolutely not. It is the primary fuel source for the colonocytes. Those are the cells lining your colon, and it's critical for repairing and maintaining the gut barrier.
Think of it like the cement that holds the wall of your gut together.
That's a great way to put it. When your gut barrier is strong, you dramatically reduce systemic inflammation and you boost your immune function.
And to really drive home the sheer power of the microbiome, let's talk about some of those dramatic case studies. They really illustrate its role in immunity.
The story of the patient facing colon removal due to a terrible C. diff infection is it's sobering. Standard antibiotics had failed.
Total crisis mode.
Right. A fecal transplant was performed, which restored the patient's microbiome, and the patient saw a complete healing of the infection and inflammation in just 2 days.
2 days.
2 days. So, fueling your own microbiome with fiber every day is basically the process of replicating those profound immune-boosting benefits naturally. You don't need to wait for a medical crisis to intervene.
And this foundation, it connects directly to successful long-term weight management, too.
It really does. If you look at the National Weight Control Registry, which tracks thousands of people who've successfully maintained weight loss, they consistently find that these people prioritize high-protein, high-fiber meals.
That's the target.
They're aiming for 15 grams or more of fiber per meal. That combination is clearly the key for sustained satiety and overall metabolic health, regardless of what you call your diet.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, moving a little further down the digestion chain, Ben Greenfield has this incredibly specific, almost tedious physical hack.
It is tedious, but he credits it with fixing his own long-standing gut issues. He consciously chooses food 25 to 40 times per bite.
Wait, 25 to 40 times? I can just hear people timing this right now. What is the physiological benefit of being that deliberate?
Well, that simple, deliberate act drastically improves digestion and reduces bloating because you're maximizing the mechanical breakdown of food before it even hits the stomach.
So you're taking the load off your stomach.
Exactly. You're reducing the workload on your stomach acid and enzymes, making sure that food enters the stomach already properly prepared. This maximizes nutrient absorption and minimizes the potential for undigested food to ferment later on in the gut.
That sounds like a mindfulness exercise as much as a digestion hack.
Yeah.
Let's move to another micro-optimization. Asprey's specific biohack for maximizing creatine absorption.
Yes. This is a good one. Most people just throw their 5 or 10 grams of creatine into a cold shake or some water.
Guilty.
He advises adding 10 to 20 grams of creatine to hot coffee.
Coffee, why?
The heat dramatically increases the solubility of the creatine powder. He suggests this leads to something like 4 times better absorption into your system. It's a simple shift in delivery that could potentially maximize the brain protection and muscle benefits of this really powerful compound.
That's a perfect segue into the fundamental micronutrient triad. This is based on the exhaustive research highlighted by Dr. Rhonda Patrick. Longevity is just impossible if you don't have these 3 optimized.
The triad is omega-3s, vitamin D, and magnesium. For omega-3s, specifically the active forms, EPA and DHA, the target is 2 to 4 grams daily.
And this isn't just a suggestion, is it? The clinical implication is severe.
It's incredibly severe. Dr. Patrick highlights that having an omega-3 index below 4% is linked to a 5-year decrease in life expectancy.
5 years.
5 years lost, simply because your cell membranes aren't pliable enough.
That is a staggering statistic. It turns a nice-to-have supplement into a longevity requirement. What about vitamin D?
Vitamin D, which is actually a powerful hormone, is so often overlooked. The optimal serum target is between 40 and 60 nanograms per milliliter.
And why is that range so vital?
Because vitamin D regulates over 5% of the entire human genome. It affects thousands of functions: immunity, mood, bone health. If your vitamin D levels are low, thousands of metabolic instructions just aren't being properly executed in your body.
Okay, and finally, the third pillar is magnesium.
Magnesium, it's a cofactor in over 300 enzymatic processes. It's critical for energy production, for ATP, and fundamentally for DNA repair.
And where do we get it?
Well, you can get some from dark leafy greens, but targeted supplementation of about 135 milligrams of magnesium malate is often recommended.
And why mallet specifically?
We specify malate because it's highly bioavailable and it's particularly noted for its role in those cellular repair functions.
Let's just add a couple of bonus brain foods before we move on to movement. Max Lugavere noted the power of two staples we tend to overlook.
Right. First, eggs. He calls them nature's multivitamin. They're incredibly rich in choline, which can reduce the risk of dementia by a substantial 30%.
30% is huge. What was the second one?
Leafy greens, they're packed with lutein, and daily consumption has been correlated with making the brain perform as if it were 11 years younger.
11 years younger. That is an incredible, measurable cognitive boost just from adding specific foods.
It's just so clear that maximizing longevity requires this level of deep nutritional precision. Often counterintuitive choices like avoiding high oxalates and just absolute discipline on those micronutrient foundations.
All right, let's transition to the physical engine. And I'll specifically challenge the popular idea that more endurance cardio is always better for long-term health.
Yeah, the conventional model often glorifies the marathon runner, but our expert on this, world champion sprinter and metabolic practitioner Cynthia Monteleone, she has a very different prescription for longevity.
Her advice is simple, but it's also radical.
It is. Prioritize short, high-intensity sprinting over long-distance endurance training. This is a fundamental metabolic shift that protects the very elements of your body that decline the fastest as you age.
This challenges everything.
Yeah.
I mean, if I tell my friends to ditch their 10-mile weekend run for a few sprints, they're going to think I'm crazy.
Yeah.
How do we respond to that criticism, that sprinting is too hard on the joints or too intense for the average person?
That's a critical question, and Monteleone addresses that by emphasizing that sprinting doesn't necessarily mean running 20 miles per hour. It means high-intensity effort relative to your capacity, followed by recovery.
So it's about the effort, not the speed.
Exactly. And the longevity benefits are profound because unlike those long, slow runs, which can spike cortisol and actively degrade muscle tissue, sprinting does two key things.
Okay, what are those key mechanisms?
One, sprinting dramatically boosts brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF.
BDNF. Think of it like fertilizer for your brain.
Perfect analogy. It promotes the survival of existing neurons and encourages the growth of new ones. It's a huge anti-aging cognitive tool.
But what's the second thing?
Two, and this is maybe the most important for physical independence, sprinting preserves your critical fast-twitch muscle fibers.
And why are fast-twitch fibers so essential for longevity? Why do we care about them so much?
Fast-twitch fibers are what allow you to react quickly, to catch yourself when you trip, or to stand up powerfully from a chair. They are the first muscle fibers we lose as we age.
And losing them is a huge predictor of problems down the line.
One of the biggest predictors of long-term frailty, loss of independence, and those catastrophic falls that can really change someone's life. Sprinting, even short bursts, is a direct signal to the body to keep those fibers alive and optimized.
Her own story is the evidence that this approach works, not just for elite athletes, but for reversing aging markers.
Oh, absolutely. At age 43, after 20 years away from serious competition, she starts training this way and becomes a world champion in the 400 meters. She ran faster than she ever did as a Division I college athlete.
After 20 years off.
Exactly. But the client story really drives the point home about shifting metabolic flexibility in later life.
You're talking about Sue McDonald.
Sue McDonald. She was a 61-year-old former plant-based endurance athlete. Monteleone put her on a high-intensity metabolism-boosting approach. This involved increasing her protein intake significantly, including the strategic use of red meat.
Specifically, eating steak before races.
Eating steak before races to maximize metabolic power and signaling. And the results, they were just undeniable. McDonald went on to break 17 world records after turning 60, including running a stunning 61-second 400-meter dash.
Wow.
It just proves the power of shifting that metabolic focus away from high-volume, potentially muscle-degrading endurance to intensity and fast-twitch fiber optimization.
So, sprinting maintains the youth of our muscles and our brain. The next hack is about maintaining the youth of our cardiovascular system.
Right. A non-pharmaceutical anti-gravity hack for blood pressure reduction. This is championed by experts like Dr. Mark Young and the thyroid expert Dr. Amy Horniman.
And it uses something called an isometric hold.
It's a truly measurable physical solution that addresses the physical hardening of the arteries that drives hypertension. The technique involves using isometric hand grip exercises, often with a specific device like the Zona device, which guides the pressure and duration.
It sounds deceptively simple.
It does, but the mechanism is powerful because it works on the actual structure of the blood vessel.
Wait, so we're talking about physically remodeling the inside of our plumbing.
Hmm.
That's incredible. Why do blood vessels typically stiffen in the first place?
We're remodeling the plumbing. The inner lining of the blood vessel is called the endothelium, and it's what keeps things pliable. Over time, due to age, inflammation, high pressure, this delicate lining stiffens. It becomes less flexible and less responsive.
And stiff, hardened vessels equal high blood pressure.
Because the heart has to push harder against that resistance.
So how does a static squeeze reverse that?
When you hold a static squeeze, you temporarily restrict blood flow, and you trigger a localized sympathetic response, a minor stress signal. But then, when you release that squeeze, you get this massive surge in blood flow.
And that surge causes a release of chemicals.
A resulting release of nitric oxide, or NO, and potassium. Nitric oxide is the body's most powerful vasodilator. It literally tells the vessels to relax and open up.
And this consistent cycle of squeeze, release, and NO surge is what softens the endothelium over time.
Precisely. Over weeks of consistent use, this cycle physically reconditions or softens that endothelial lining, which leads to lower resting blood pressure.
There was a great case study for this.
Dr. Young's own case study is so compelling. His 68-year-old father, a race car driver with chronic high blood pressure, used this method to significantly reduce and sometimes entirely eliminate his reliance on blood pressure medication.
That's tangible evidence. It proves you can mechanically influence health markers that we usually think of as fixed or only treatable with drugs.
That's the power of it.
Okay, that is a tangible example of biomechanical influence. Now, speaking of health markers that are frustratingly difficult to fix, let's talk thyroid optimization.
Yes. So many people are told their TSH is fine, yet they cannot lose weight no matter how hard they try.
Dr. Amy Horniman, the thyroid expert, she issues a critical warning here.
She does. If your diet, exercise, and even the new weight loss drugs like GLP-1s are failing, you have to look deeper than TSH. That's often the only test a doctor runs. You must check your free T3 levels.
Why free T3?
Because too many patients are only given T4-only medication, Synthroid, for example, which is an inactive prohormone. Some bodies just don't efficiently convert that T4 into the active T3 hormone that actually drives your metabolism.
So T4 is the fuel in the tank, but T3 is the key in the ignition.
That's a perfect analogy. If your body can't turn the key, everything just stalls out.
And the solution involves optimizing those free T3 levels.
And potentially supplementing with T2. T2 is a lesser-known thyroid metabolite that helps regulate metabolic rate directly in the cells, kind of independent of T3's actions.
The case of her patient, Barbara, really illustrates the synergy between the thyroid and weight loss resistance, especially when using modern drugs.
It's a perfect example. Barbara was a type 2 diabetic who needed to lose 150 pounds. She was put on a GLP-1 drug. She was diligent, but for a full year, she saw absolutely zero weight loss.
A whole year.
A whole year. The drug simply wasn't having its intended metabolic effect because her engine was broken. Only after Dr. Horniman optimized her T3 and added T2 did the GLP-1 start working effectively.
And that's when the weight loss finally started.
Exactly. It initiated the dramatic weight loss Barbara needed. It just underscores that all the weight loss tools in the world are useless if the master metabolism regulator, the thyroid, isn't functioning optimally.
Before we leave the physical engine, we have to discuss one of the most proactive and impactful longevity strategies for children. And it ironically involves early exposure to things we traditionally avoided.
We're talking about preventing food allergies with the LAP study.
This is such a crucial area of public health, led by Dr. Gideon Lack. For decades, the traditional advice was absolute avoidance.
Don't give common allergens like peanuts during infancy. Just keep them away.
And the new evidence-based advice is the exact opposite.
The exact opposite. Expose infants to potential allergens early, specifically between 4 and 11 months of age.
And the data from the randomized control trial is just staggering. It's enough to justify changing global public health guidelines.
It really is. The LAP study involved 640 children. The avoidance group, the ones who followed the old advice, had a 14% rate of peanut allergy by age 5.
14%. That is a high life-altering risk.
It is. But the group that consumed peanuts consistently from infancy, they had a rate of just 1.9%.
Wow, so 14% down to 1.9%. That's an 86% reduction in allergy risk. When you look at prevention that effective, what does the source material suggest was the core reason the old avoidance strategy failed so badly?
Well, the old strategy was based on weak evidence and just a misunderstanding of how the immune system develops. This LEP study showed the immune system needs to be trained, not protected, in that early window.
So introducing it in the gut teaches the body it's safe.
Exactly. The immune system learns to recognize it as a harmless food particle, not a pathogen. If you only introduce it later, when the immune system has already sort of hardened its protocols, it's more likely to mistake that particle for a threat.
And we understand the stakes because the source material mentions Alex, a 19-year-old, who described that terrifying experience of anaphylaxis.
Yeah, and needing to use an EpiPen after eating tuna. That experience just illustrates why this preventative intervention in infancy is so crucial. Prevention in the first year of life can prevent decades of anxiety and potentially life-threatening crises.
Longevity isn't just about preserving the body. It's really about maintaining the mind's capacity and our emotional resilience. Let's start with a breakthrough in cognitive decline research.
And this is moving away from purely pharmaceutical approaches toward nutritional cellular repair. Dr. John Lewis's work on specific polysaccharides is revolutionary.
Polysaccharides, these are complex carbohydrates, right?
Right, and they're found in surprisingly simple sources, like aloe vera and rice bran. He calls them good sugars because instead of fueling inflammation or unhealthy growth, they provide the signaling material necessary to repair damaged cells.
The clinical detail here is highly emotional, but also medically significant. It's focused on severe cognitive impairment.
Exactly. The study involved patients with moderate to severe Alzheimer's disease. The group consuming this polysaccharide complex showed clinically significant improvements in cognitive function. And this was measured by 8A-COG scores, which is the standard tool for assessing cognitive decline.
But the underlying cellular change was, that was maybe the most astonishing finding in this whole deep dive.
I agree. They observed a nearly 300% increase in CD14 cells over 12 months.
Okay, let's define that for the listener. What is the significance of a 300% surge in CD14 cells?
CD14 is a marker of circulating progenitor cells. These are basically precursor cells that can lead to the production of new stem cells.
So a 300% increase.
A nearly 300% increase implies the complex isn't just masking symptoms, it's driving profound, measurable repair and the regeneration of new tissue. It's possibly repairing the damaged neural networks.
It's activating the body's own self-healing mechanisms.
That's exactly it.
That anecdote alone, that return of functional life, that's not just longevity in years, it's quality of life redefined. Can you recount the story of the 93-year-old woman in the study?
It's incredible. This woman was wheelchair-bound, and she was nonverbal when the study began. After just 3 months of consuming the polysaccharide complex, she began speaking again.
Wow.
And astonishingly, she recognized a clinical coordinator by name. The staff who had been working with her daily were moved to tears of joy. That profound, measurable return of personhood. That's the ultimate metric of success.
That is truly incredible. Now let's talk about optimizing quality of life through the relationships that sustain us. Specifically, how we handle conflict with a long-term partner.
Family therapist Terry Real offers a technique for relational repair that sounds so counterintuitive to anyone who loves to win an argument.
He calls it learning to duck under criticism.
Right. Most of us, when we're criticized or confronted by an angry partner, we immediately react defensively. We fight back with facts, with details, with defensiveness. We try to prove the other person wrong.
And Real says you must resist that urge completely.
Because facts rarely solve emotional conflict.
So why does fighting with facts fail? What's the mechanism there?
Because facts invalidate the underlying emotion. If your partner is angry, they're angry because they feel ignored or unseen. Presenting a spreadsheet showing why they shouldn't feel angry only escalates the conflict.
You're basically denying their reality.
You are. The goal of repair isn't to be right. It's to reconnect.
So instead of fighting the delivery, we duck under it. What's the core question that shifts the entire dynamic?
You have to duck under that harsh delivery, ignore the tone for a moment, and address the underlying need. The core question to shift the dynamic is, what do you need?
And that moves the conversation immediately from antagonism and blame
To collaboration and solution. It changes, why are you wrong, to how can we solve this together?
He and his wife, Belinda, who's also a therapist, they used this to transform their own relationship.
They did. Their history was these intense fights that would sometimes last for weeks. By instituting this strategy, taking a brief break and asking, do you want to fight right now, or what is it that you truly need? They transformed potential week-long conflicts into a 20-minute repair.
They prioritize connection over correctness.
Exactly. And this internal strategy, it extends to self-care as well. Real emphasizes the importance of internal hygiene.
Which means absolutely refusing to be harsh or cruel with yourself.
He states it very clearly. There's no redeeming value in harshness, whether it's directed outward at a partner or inward at yourself. Self-compassion is a non-negotiable part of emotional longevity and resilience.
Moving from relational repair to social success, let's look at the science of charisma and confidence cues with behavioral investigator Vanessa Van Edwards.
She argues that confidence isn't some mystical quality you're born with. It's a measurable balance of two specific cue sets.
And that balance is between warmth and competence.
Right. Warmth is about appearing friendly, kind, trustworthy. Competence is about appearing smart, capable, and authoritative. You can be the nicest person in the world or the smartest, but if they aren't balanced, you won't be fully trusted or respected. You need both.
And she highlights a key verbal behavior that signals low competence that almost everyone does unconsciously.
Question inflection or uptalk at the end of a statement. It makes a statement sound like a question seeking validation.
So if you say, my name is John, instead of my name is John,
you signal to the subconscious mind of the listener that you are unsure of your own identity or your own statement, and that just tanks your perceived competence.
The perfect case study for this is Jamie Siminoff, the founder of Ring. Tell us how that small verbal cue changed his career trajectory.
It's an amazing story. In his original Shark Tank pitch for the doorbell, he failed to get a deal. And Van Edwards noted his pattern of using question inflection even when stating his own name. It's Jamie.
Wow.
That small vocal cue signaled this pervasive lack of authority, even though his product was great. When he returned years later as a jest, Shark massively successful, his cues were corrected.
He used downward inflection.
Downward inflection, confident statements, and he was able to completely command the room and project total competence.
That is a stunning example of how a tiny behavioral hack can literally change your perceived potential. She also provides a simple nonverbal hack involving how we nod.
It's a trick based on primal safety cues. When you greet people you know and trust, use the nod up, a quick, slight tilt back.
And that unconsciously exposes the jugular.
Which is an ancient signal of safety and trust. For strangers, business contacts, or people you need to show deference to, use the nod down. This protects the jugular and signals respect, keeping the interaction formal and competent.
Tiny, intentional, nonverbal changes that maximize social capital.
That's the idea.
Finally, let's wrap the mental toolkit with specific hacks for sleep and acute stress management. We all know sleep is critical for clearing cognitive waste, but what do you do when your mind just won't shut off?
Dr. Matthew Walker, the preeminent sleep scientist, provides an incredibly detailed visualization technique for anyone suffering from rumination.
Because standard advice like just relax is often too vague and it just fails.
It does. Walker's technique is designed to engage the mind just enough to prevent those harmful, stressful, looping thoughts that keep you awake. He recommends the midnight bookshop visualization.
What's the specific scenario we should run in our heads?
It's a very specific sensory scenario. You imagine walking through a quiet, dark British village. The sensory detail anchors the mind. You enter a cozy, empty bookshop.
You're supposed to really engage the senses.
Intentionally. You smell the old paper, you hear the rain gently hitting the window, and you sit in a plush, velvet armchair. That specific sensory engagement occupies the visual and sensory cortex enough to disengage the prefrontal cortex and the stress centers, which helps induce sleep.
It gives the mind something constructive and non-stressful to focus on.
And richly detailed.
Beyond sleep, we need flexible mental repair methods for when standard meditation fails us. Meditation teacher Jeff Warren emphasizes a crucial point. There is no neurotypical brain.
This is so important. The problem is that standard breath-focused meditation, which works for many, can actually cause anxiety, particularly in people with ADHD, bipolar, or highly kinetic neurotypes.
So forcing yourself to focus on a still object or your breath can feel like fighting your own internal wiring.
It can, and it leads to more agitation, not less.
So if breath focus doesn't work, what's the custom solution for these neurotypes?
You should try practices that leverage that internal movement. Things like open awareness meditation, movement-based practices like walking meditation, or even sound-based focus.
And Warren, who has ADHD himself, he uses short, varied practices.
And he also actively reduces his social stress by openly communicating his challenges, like having to immediately write down names to remember them. It reduces that internal stress and the constant feeling of inadequacy.
And for acute stress or systemic inflammation, we move to a powerful physiological tool, hacking the vagus nerve.
Dr. Kevin Tracy, a neurosurgeon specializing in this neural highway, has a quick hack using acute cold exposure.
Acute cold exposure stimulates the vagus nerve via the diving reflex.
Right, it's a primal mammalian response. This reflex immediately slows the heart rate and acts as a powerful anti-inflammatory response through nerve signaling.
He describes a simple way to test this.
Tracy's personal experiment is simple but effective. He steps out of a warm shower, turns the water immediately to cold for 30 seconds, and then steps back into the warm water.
That initial shock is the key.
He notes that the initial fight or flight shock actually triggers the cessation of cytokine production. It switches off acute inflammation. This is then followed by a calming, heart-slowing sensation, almost an out-of-body calmness, as the vagal system kicks in.
It's a rapid reset button for the entire nervous system that you can practice every day. We've covered a massive amount of technical detail on nutrition, movement, mental hacks, but the critical question is still, how do we make these high-impact habits actually stick for the long term?
We have to hijack the dopamine reward system, and that starts by changing how we define our goals.
Rob Dial points out that result-based goals, like I want to lose 40 pounds, they often fail.
They do because the reward is too distant. It requires this long, grueling effort before you see any payoff. Your brain is just not wired for that kind of delayed gratification.
So the solution is to switch entirely to action-based goals.
Exactly. I will go to the gym today, or I will chew my first meal 25 times. That action is immediately achievable and it's within your control.
And this ties directly back to identity, which Vanessa Spina and other behavioral experts have noted is just paramount.
Behavior follows identity. If you identify as a person who prioritizes protein or a person who protects their brain health, those small, consistent actions, they compound over time, like relentless waves turning rocks to sand.
But to cement that action into a behavior loop, you need to deliberately reward yourself.
With the brain's favorite chemical, dopamine. Dial's dopamine hack is to generate self-praise immediately after you complete a small action.
So, for example, after finishing a set at the gym or doing that 30-second cold blast,
You look in the mirror or just internally reflect and you say, I'm so proud of you.
and that self-administered praise is the key.
Yes, because it releases dopamine, which reinforces the behavior internally. It teaches your brain that the difficult action, the workout, the cold shower, the disciplined chewing, is the source of the reward.
So your brain starts to want to repeat the difficult action next time, instead of seeking some external validation or a sugary treat.
That's a powerful shift from external validation to internal, sustainable motivation.
Shifting now to the social environment. Dan Buettner, the Blue Zones expert, consistently shows us that longevity is a community project, not just a solo pursuit.
Your social environment is perhaps your single biggest biohack.
The community impact on health markers is just profound.
He details the story of these inner-city Miami moms who were dealing with issues like high blood pressure and type 2 diabetes. They reversed their health issues simply by gathering weekly to cook affordable, bean-rich, one-pot meals together.
So it wasn't just the change in diet.
It was the shared social accountability, the sense of purpose, and the communal meal prep that drove the long-term sustainable change.
And Buettner's view of movement is also counter to the modern gym culture. It's about building movement back into your environment.
So you don't have to think about it. He credits his mother living to 93 to the constant non-exercise movement required by her two-story house. She was always climbing stairs, squatting to pick things up, moving naturally all day.
Longevity often comes not from running a marathon,
But from the cumulative effect of constant micro-movements that are just built into your environment.
and we have a precise statistic on the value of that natural movement.
We do. The data shows that increasing your daily steps from around 4,000 to 10,000 can add approximately 4 years of life expectancy.
4 years. That's quantifiable longevity achieved through movement that is naturally woven into your routine, often without setting foot in a gym.
It's incredible.
Now, before we wrap up, we need to address a hard truth. A crucial warning from Dave Asprey that underscores the necessity of proactive screening, even if you are doing absolutely everything right.
His warning is blunt. Fitness provides no guarantee against serious illness. Many highly fit people who feel healthy, they just assume they're immune from risk because their lifestyle is so clean.
He referenced a specific and frankly shocking study of 100 dedicated runners, ages 35 to 50, the epitome of health.
And the study revealed that nearly 40% of them had precancerous tumors.
40%.
And the critical point is that these tumors were often traced back to toxin-induced DNA damage that occurred early in life, sometimes in infancy. It was completely unrelated to their current marathon training lifestyle.
Their fitness was actually hiding the damage.
Exactly. This just necessitates proactive screening and deep gut health work, even if you're performing at peak physical condition. It reminds us that longevity protocols have to be personalized and comprehensive. You have to look beneath the surface of apparent health.
Speaking of personalized and comprehensive, we briefly noted Karen Martel's personal longevity protocol as an example of how specific these interventions can get at the highest level.
She detailed a highly personalized hormonal strategy, a 0.05 milligram estrogen patch, 10 milligram testosterone injections every 10 days, alongside specific supplements.
Let's focus on one of those supplements for a moment, urolithin A. What is it, and why is it showing up in these high-level longevity stacks?
Urolithin A is fascinating. It's a postbiotic compound, which means it's something produced by your gut bacteria that has profound systemic effects.
And what does it do?
Specifically, it helps your mitochondria, your cellular power plants, recycle themselves. It's a process called mitophagy. As mitochondria age, they become less efficient. Urolithin A helps cull the old, weak mitochondria and encourages the growth of new, stronger ones.
So it's essentially optimizing the cellular energy engine at the microscopic level.
For peak function and longevity. These protocols aren't prescriptive for everyone, obviously, but they just exemplify the precision that's necessary when you're optimizing your internal hormonal and cellular environments. Hashtag #uptech outro.
We covered a tremendous amount of ground today. We challenged some deeply held health beliefs and provided tools for both metabolic and emotional resilience. If I had to pull out 3 of the most surprising, actionable nuggets from this entire deep dive,
Let's hear them.
they would be: 1, the crucial finding that high protein during caloric restriction actually accelerates visceral fat loss while still maintaining those essential autophagy signals.
A total game changer.
2, the cognitive breakthrough of using polysaccharides to generate that nearly 300% surge in stem cell markers for repair in patients with Alzheimer's. And 3, the simple mechanical power of the isometric hand grip to physically soften blood vessels and reduce hypertension.
I think ultimately longevity is about more than just surviving longer. It's about optimizing the quality of those years, specifically the quality of your relationships and your mental capacity.
Absolutely.
Every single hack we discussed today, from consciously chewing your food 40 times to learning how to duck under criticism by asking, what do you need in a fight? It all serves that ultimate goal of functional health.
But the deepest insights from the Blue Zones data and the long-term weight maintenance data, they always point back to social context.
Always.
Remember the patient on the weight loss registry who kept regaining weight during his weekly pizza nights until he swapped that entire social environment for a local volleyball team? That change in his social circle was the trigger for successful permanent maintenance.
And this leads us to our final thought for you to consider this week, building on the profound impact of community. Which of your weekly habits is inextricably tied to a specific social environment? And could changing that social circle, not just the food or the exercise, be the single most powerful health intervention you can make this week?
That's your deep dive homework.